Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of B is for Build. In today's episode, we're gonna finish skinnying up our chassis a little bit. We had to make it 5.5 inches skinnier, and then we're gonna test fit our body and probably start tacking body panels together and stuff like that on top of this chassis right here. So we're taking our fake Bugatti that is actually an SLC car and making it a Mustang. Stay tuned. All right, when we left you guys in the last episode, the side panel was tacked on. We're exactly where we left you guys. The side panel is tacked on. Oscar's gonna fully weld this thing out to bring back the rigidity into the chassis before he cuts the other half off. It's time to make some sparks. Oscar got the side panel welded back on. These welds look phenomenal. I'm really happy. This is all coming out of our Harbor Freight Vulcan Megmax welder. So we're having a few little troubles before, and then we ran our own 220 outlet in the shop. So I don't know if we ever talked about that, but shop, weirdly enough, has a bunch of, what is that, three-phase 440?
Yeah, 480.
480, three-phase 480 plugs. That's like what those are. And they had no 220. So we figured out a safe, like, legitimate way to wire in a 220. And then now the welder with the spool gun is super happy, running very well, and made this thing a breeze for Oscar. I mean, I think, what, you did this in like 30 minutes or less?
Yeah,
like, yeah, it was really quick to weld this whole side panel on. So that was really cool. Now Oscar's moving on to these side pieces. We're gonna have to modify these a little bit because they're coming in, this is backwards. They're coming in at a little bit more of a steep angle. So this is gonna get modified, sanded down, and then welded back into the place where it originally was. This one you can see still needs to be cut off and then modified and welded back in too. And while we're there, we'll clean off all the gasoline and stuff like that. Oh yeah, we haven't updated people on the whole gas situation. All right, so Oscar's gonna keep welding. I'm over here wiring, and I'm just still wiring. I thought it was gonna take a day. I'm on day 4. Oscar just wrapped up these lower reinforcements, frame reinforcements to the chassis. So that is looking great. That is one side fully completed. Now we got to test some stuff out because the width of the vehicle just changed, which means our designs changed. To be quite honest with you guys, I was planning on a pretty wide body for the design of this vehicle, and I've been kind of teetering on the design that I want to do and my ideas and stuff like that. So what I'd like to do now is mock up another side panel, another rear quarter panel, see how wide it is in comparison to our hub faces, and see, does this thing have to be wide body or maybe could it not be? So let's start test fitting some stuff out, learn a little bit more about the dimensions. This is pretty cool. This half of the car, this entire half of the car, exact Mustang dimensions right now. It was too close to tell. So without having the middle like roof parts and the front parts and the cowl and everything to help us know exactly how much tilt, it's like one way you have it set up and it looks like, yeah, we could potentially run this without a wide body, and then the other way is like, no, there's definitely not gonna happen. If I had to guess right now, I'd say we probably still have to wide body this thing, but well, we're gonna find out later in this episode because we will have the body mock fit on here, and then we'll know for sure what we can get away with and what we can't. So till then, Oscar has to continue cutting, cut this car in half 2 more times, and then we'll be ready to weld it back together. For the last time we'll have to weld this car back together, Oscar. Getting very close to body placement time. Man, am I excited. This looks so good. Oscar did a great job as usual. I'm really excited by this. We test fit some seats with the new fuel cell design and stuff, and it's all looking really good. I'm going to talk about the fuel cell placement. A lot of people getting a lot of comments about putting it up front. I mentioned it in the beginning of this episode. I think the days are kind of mixing together now. I'm losing my mind a little bit, but I'll talk about it later. Anyways, Oscar's just got the 2 rear supports supporting the frame to the outer corner of the frame, and get those trimmed up, angled back correctly, welded in the car. Then we get to start putting some Mustang parts on here. Alright, so the next move is the thing that we tried to do yesterday, which is putting the sides on and then figuring out how much our hubs maybe stick out from the sides or stay within the sides. Are they flush? Are they out? All that stuff. That way we can get our wheels and tires ordered, figured out, all that good stuff. So we're going to throw some side panels on. We have to have, so we'll do the side panels on each side. The one with the over fender will actually be on, and then roof supports. And should we do roof panel? Let's just do roof supports. Cowl, maybe cowl. Yeah, cowl's a really good idea. This is going to be exciting. Things are actually going to fit. Yes. Okay. We've got enough room. We figured that out. We're actually, so this is kind of weird. We're a little too narrow at the top, and that is because on both sides it's like hanging out way too much. And that's because, I think I mentioned this, it's more narrow in the front than it is at the back. And right now we're kind of following the square. So we're gonna have to kick these guys out more while keeping the front there. I think the only way that we can do that, I don't think Clecos are gonna be able to hold this whole car body together, so I think we're actually gonna start laying in some tack welds. So we're gonna use the cowl as a guide piece because it has exact alignment holes. We're gonna get the cowl where we like it, tack it in, and then start moving backwards and just start kind of tacking stuff, knowing that we're gonna cut the tacks off later. So we're gonna weld the body together temporarily. Here we go. Okay guys, we got the upper cowl test fit on there. It test fit well, but then the lower cowl is hitting our steering shaft, so steering input shaft. So we're gonna go ahead and trim out this pretty large section here so we can get the lower cowl in, because it really helps set the space for the upper cowl. And this is important. We don't want to get this wrong. So we're going to go ahead and cut that square out real quick. In the long run, this will probably be a trimmed down version of what it usually is. Don't get too excited, guys. Yes, the body goes on fast, but this is like the difference between test fitting a body kit and then actually, sending it to a body shop and having it fully installed. The full installation part takes a lot of time. Just throwing stuff in its place where it goes can happen really quickly. But this is very exciting. This is showing us that right now that our quarter panel is not super sunk in over here. It's showing us a lot of good things. Everything is lining up very well. Panels are lining up extremely well. And it's showing us a lot of really good things on the chassis. It's got me really excited. So what we need to do now is we've got this quarter panel Clecoed on. I need to stop stepping on those brake lines, so they're going to be toast. We need to come over to this side, get the other quarter panel Clecoed on, and then we will introduce the rear taillight panel that goes right through here. It's something we just got in a shipment, and once we Cleco that in, that'll set our rear width. From there, we just center these panels on the car, make sure it's all centered, and then we can actually say definitively you know, can we fit a wheel and tire combo in here? Does it have to be wide body, etc., etc.? We're going to learn our limitations. Right now, though, I mean, gosh, this is looking like we might not have to modify the doors at all, which would be really cool. So, yeah, rear quarter panel, tail panel. This is my favorite car to assemble. It just looks better and better every panel you put on. So we got the rear tail panel in here. That sets our overall width. Now what these guys are doing is they both have a tape measure on each side, and we're kind of pushing the body left and right until it's centered over the chassis. So we mentioned before how the body really, it narrows down and our chassis is square. We talked about that earlier. So this is all following the game plan that we've already kind of learned. And honestly, I mean, if all the panels fit up nicely, who really cares? The cool thing is, as we push this out more, the door gets closer and closer to being able to shut without running into our chassis. Are we looking centered?
Looks pretty good, yeah.
Okay, Kyle's gonna do the last little measurement.
Yeah, it's very similar to my side. Yeah.
Okay. So the big question is, do we have to wide body this car, or can we get away with not wide bodying it? I want to know before we start ever cutting in any body panels or anything, is it even an option to leave it stock bodied or with just a mild flare, or do we got to go all out? My original design for this car was to be very, very wide bodied, but I could be convinced to go the other way if we can get a wheel and tire to fit in here, but let's just find out. That's bad news for team non-wide body. That wheel did not even get close. It stuck out past the fender like an inch and a half. How much was that? Inch and a half, 2 inches? It was like 2 inches. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's deceiving. It really looks like you could fit a wheel in there, but you probably can't. We're gonna go ahead and test fit a wheel and tire on the front with the front fender and see if that's any better. All right, we used all of our doctorates added up in our measuremental mathematical sized systems and found out exactly where this fender goes in space, which is right there. And yeah, it's the same story. Unfortunately, this one sticks out a little bit less because this is a smaller wheel with even higher offset, but it doesn't even clear the brake caliper. So we thought we could figure that problem out later with sandpaper. But anyways, yeah, just to show you, the wheels and tires stick out more. So you know, if you guys see in the comments and you guys see, oh, you should have not wide bodied it and stuff, yeah, it wasn't an option. It never was supposed to be an option. When I originally designed this car, I designed it with a very wide body in mind, and it'd be like, it's gonna look somewhat like, if we do it right, maybe Ken Block's Hoonicorn's cousin or something. The Fastback version, the Driving Miss Daisy version, the classy version. This is a classic horn. Class of horn? Horn of class. All right. We should do some building now. All right, a couple minutes have gone by. I just hit up some of our sponsors. We got Koenig wheels coming in for the drifty wheels. We're gonna be running these wheels as the main thing, but then we also needed tires. So I hit up our boys at Nitto Tires, and we got tires on the way. So we're all good there. And I got wheels and tires for the single seater, which, you know, just imagine it parked right there. Wow, that's a loud forklift. And we'll build it. Yes, that's gonna happen. Next up, roll cage. We gotta get the roll cage going. I'm gonna keep playing around with body stuff, but Oscar is starting on the roll cage. We're working on the rear main hoop, so he's got our bender out here. And the rear main on this vehicle, usually it's gonna go from your floorboards, right? Well, that's not the strongest place in this vehicle. These chassis rails where they were mounted last time are definitely the strongest spot. You can imagine how easy it'd be to punch through an aluminum floorboard. So it gets bolted onto the bracket here. We're gonna have a slight angle at it to maximize cabin space, and we're gonna go up and then that way and then back down, and then it'll get supported back there. We're just copying what the guys at SLC do for their safety stuff as well, just with a little bit more lean. All right, guys, Oscar's got the rear main hoop in. We've got it on a 10-degree tilt, which last time we checked with the different racing bodies, that's within allowances. Doesn't really matter for this car. It's not a purpose-built race car, but we want to build it as safely as we can. To the 10-degree tilt, and then we really quickly go straight from here back to the frame for supports to make it really, really nice and strong, really triangulating that area of the car. So we got that there. And we test fit a seat in here along with the dash. So I got the dash, and then I went ahead and bought the dash pad. I found out this is a thing for Mustang dashes. Let me put the seat in here and show you the seating position. With the back of the seat right up against the fuel cell area, it's not even mind the steering wheel for now. I'm not getting into this car very easily. Once I'm in here, my legs have plenty of room, because remember we lengthened this chassis and everything. My legs have plenty of room to the pedals, but as you can see, there's two issues here. I'm sitting way too low. My eye line is only like 3 inches over the dash. I have a foot of headroom here, and then there's absolutely no room for the steering wheel to go. So I'm too low. So obviously, like leaning backwards more is possible, but that only makes you more low. This is quite cozy, but we're not here to nap. We're here to drive. So a lot of you guys have mentioned about removing the rear fuel cell and placing it up front. So now it's time to talk about why it can't go up front. There's a few cars on the market that do have a fuel cell up front, Porsche's being a key one of them. They have very well engineered safety structures that come off that house the whole shebang, the whole fuel tank and fuel cell and everything like that. It's a crumple zone that's meant to go, and it probably, I'm sure, stops before the fuel cell. Most cars, just so you know, fuel cell, if you have 2 rows of seats, like if you have back seats, fuel cell is going to be underneath your back seats, dead set in the middle, kind of like over there. This car, being that it is a weird race car chassis, not saying that's a bad thing, I really love this chassis, but it's 1/4 inch solid aluminum chassis front bulkhead. Let's call this area this. This is thick stuff. In the event of a crash, I don't expect that would crumple very well at all. This car doesn't really have a crumple zone. It also doesn't have built-in frame rail pickup points anywhere along this thing, so you can see where when they were doing the movie, guys, they just threw like a nut and bolt through here, but look, I mean, I'm moving this around with my hand. Even the suspension is just a tiny little bolt that's thrown through there into the chassis. So what happens is if we just do some quick bolt-up plates into this, and we throw some bars over here and we put a fuel cell in the middle, the most likely thing that would happen in the event of a front-end accident is those rails are going to shear off to the side. They're going to go kablamo, or they'll fold sideways one way or another, and we wouldn't have a really good crash structure that would absorb a lot of impact, and then that fuel cell would get smooshed at high speed, smoosh. Fuel is going to go up that way everywhere around the vehicle and probably catch on fire, because keep in mind the other car that would probably be hitting you in a head-on has a running engine too. There's a lot of heat, and it's going to cause a fire most likely. Also, oftentimes in wrecks, there's sparks. So yeah, talking about instant fireball in the event of a wreck. When you do a DIY front mount fuel cell, it's basically a Pinto in reverse. It's just not a smart idea. So with all that being said, we're not going to put the fuel cell up front. We are going to build the best crash structure. We know how, using best practices that we've seen on race car builds and stuff like that. Other thing worth pointing we should point out, not point in. I'm losing it, guys. Worth pointing out, older car panels like what we're using are much thicker gauge steel than the other one. So fender for fender, this one weighs about 5 to 10 times more than a modern fender. So they do act as more of a crumple zone and a crash zone for low speed, mid speed actions. They will do some absorption. Anyways, let's talk about fuel cells. So moving backwards, we said a couple things about the seat. It needs to go up, that's for sure. I need to get the midsection of my body back. My legs have tons of room, but I need to get my chest back so my arms can go out a little bit to grab onto that steering wheel. So the seat needs to go about where it is right here. We have 2 fuel cells laying around in the shop here. This guy right there is a 15-gallon one. This one's a 5-gallon one. We have looked all over the back of this thing to find where we can do 2 things. 1, place it safely, and 2, run the filler neck to the cool spot, which is right back here. Can't fit it anywhere without really ruining the engine bay view. Yes, we could slam it right there. Is that a fighter jet in the background? Sorry, there's a F-18 taking off behind us. So anyways, we could put it right there, but it would really make the view of the engine bay kind of a lot less cool. Plus the ugly ass filler net coming off of it just wasn't what we wanted to do. So that brought us back into here, the safest place, what I would consider the optimal place for the placement of the fuel cell. And we got some room back here. Oscar and I measured it out, and putting the seat in just the overall optimal spot and everything like that, we would want to build a cell, if we could build it on our own, that would be, oh, see, hit the roof, the full width of the car. So we'd run the full width of the car. We'd put a hole in it to run the cabling through, because we have to run the shifter cables through. And we'd want it to go up as high as we could, and we'd make it pretty narrow. So we measured all that stuff out. We did some math. We found that it has a 2,200 cubic inch surface if we do that, area. We divided that up into gallons, and it would fill about 19.6 gallons. So, wait, did I say 19? 9.6 gallons, making it a 10-gallon tank, which is fine for a vehicle like this. A 10-gallon fuel cell is cool. So that is the game plan. We are going to build our own fuel cell. We just figured all of that out in the middle of that long rant. I literally had to pause several times filming and figure out how the hell we're gonna do this thing. Not what we expected to be doing at all in this build, guys, but we overcome these situations. And again, what compromises are we making here? It takes us a little bit of time to build a fuel cell. Other than that, we're good. But that is where we're gonna call it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing so you don't miss any episodes on this awesome build. We're gonna make it to Holly LS Fest. We have 1 week and 2 days. We have 1 week and 2 days. So it's not gonna be painted. It'll be a lot of fun looking colors, but that's kind of what we do with Mustangs lately. And then I'll paint it after the show. We're just trying to bring stuff to LS Fest to do a lot of shaking down and then racing with other things like, you know, race cars and stuff. But these will be good shakedowns. So thank you guys so much for watching. In the next episode, we will do more things. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you again very soon. Peace!